Let's try that again. Hi, welcome to Touch by Prayer. I am so excited. I have methods in the house. Holy moly. How did I get the Batman of social media? That's what I'd like to know because that's what I call him. He has been so busy just getting everything ready and amped up for the great awakening. That's right, because God is starting to reveal stuff. And Methods has been sitting there being a truth speaker and has been basically walking in his calling since the beginning of this. So, without further ado, let me bring in the man, the myth, the legend, Methods. Hello, Methods. Welcome to Touch by Prayer.
Hello, my friend. What an introduction! Wow. When I make it down from cloud nine, I hope that you'll be able to hear me correctly. But no, thank you for inviting me. This is great.
Absolutely. This has been so exciting to have you on here. I mean, we've been trying to do this for quite a while, and we just timing is key. That's kind of what I've learned about life is that timing is so key. And so that has definitely been, you have been graced with perfect timing. I'm just going to say that. Like,
I,
seriously, like everything that you do, your timing is just impeccable.
well, I mean, I guess behind the scenes, I guess you guys don't see the obsessing and the notes and then the rough drafts and the rethinking things and then yelling at myself in the mirror, telling me that was a bad idea. Then I just design everything that I can, and then somehow you guys just see the end product, and it looks great to y'all, but it was a mess the entire way there. I assure you.
Well, I think that you're just a little too hard on yourself. I'm just gonna say that because, like I said, I what I've been seeing, and the funny thing is that when you started Foxhole, and we're going to talk about that, but I used to follow you when you were on something. My gosh, it was called Twitter. You remember that? I mean, way back in the day.
Yeah, the old Twitter life. It feels like a distant memory at this point. That
Uh-huh.
actually wasn't. It wasn't that long ago, but it does. I guess the
Well, let me just.
circumstances that we're in now. Yeah, okay.
Well,
Feels like
I will
forever
tell
ago.
you that I did. I made it through the Twitter purge. I lost a lot of people, but I made it through, and so I'm still standing. I feel like that Elton John song. I'm still standing. And and the interesting thing is, guess what? You and Donald Trump have been right. It's crazy. It's just craziness out there.
Well, yeah, no, I do have to say congratulations to being able to keep your Twitter account. They definitely got rid of mine and never even responded to me about it. But just don't have any survivor's guilt. We need you over there. We need the help.
Well, I'm telling you, this is the whole what I'd like to talk about is well, first of all, for those who don't know the awesomeness of you, would you mind just sharing with the Touch by Prayer audience who you are?
All right. Well, the long story short about that is basically I'm just another guy on the internet that likes to have his own life off the internet. And as things started to develop, and I started seeing the world changing a little bit when it comes to information, when it comes to whether when Trump got elected, and things started showing that like evil really had to start showing its face, and I just wanted to be a part of it, and I wanted to help wake up the world to what that is, and so I kind of just fell into doing social media, sharing the information that I found or others have found, and then it kind of just fell into the next phases of, well, okay, if I could share information there, then I could share it on live streams, and then I could run my own shows. And next thing you know, we're here in 2022 doing something 5 years ago I didn't even know was on the radar. And I've enjoyed the ride the entire time.
Well, I'm going to say that what a ride it has been, and the thing that when I was really praying about it, and that's one of the things that I love because you bring God into everything, which it's really interesting for this particular movement for those people who I'm just going to call them truthers. How about that? We'll just call them truthers because that's what they're doing because we're going to find out it's all been the truth. But anyway, so the thing that I love is that there's so much talk about God and God's been brought in and there's prayer that's been brought in and like you have something called coffee and chill here on D Live and also over on your platform, which is Foxhole. So if you guys haven't subscribed to Foxhole, you need to, because that's where you definitely want to be. But and you're also on Cloud Hub, which is another a free speech platform. So you can also go over to Cloud Hub, because Cloud Hub is another place that is safe to speak. So people can find you. But the interesting thing is, like, you'll be in the middle of talking and you'll see like a prayer or something, and you'll like stop, drop, and pray.
Right. Well, it kind of with the coffee and chill thing and how that played out was it was with everybody doing news shows, and they've got their reasons why they do, whether it's your prayer driven, your story driven, Bible driven streams that you have, as well as the interviews, and people do all these different kinds of things, but there needed to be something to where you're talking to the community directly and being able to go back and forth, read the comment out loud, have a back and forth dialogue, ask questions, and kind of live in it. And I was like, what a good idea to have in the mornings when we're drinking coffee and waking up. Why don't we just spend time together? And as it's developed, and the more I've kind of just been paying attention to the world, and it's ever been more clear that this is good versus evil playing out in front of us in real time, and that plays a role in it when it comes to when things are happening in somebody's life that's a negative, it's an oppressive situation, an obstacle. That's a breeding ground for evil to attack and break people down.
Yeah.
And so it fell on my heart watching this good versus evil, like watching it through that lens. It let me know that we need to make sure that we're taking care of the souls and we're nurturing it, because everything else is depriving that of the food that it needs. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I see these prayers, and it kind of became a thing that I just wanted to follow what everybody needed. And next thing you know, now we've got prayer chains. Now I've got people that are helping me organize the emails and the prayers and making sure that we catch them all, and then the praise reports. And it's something that I feel like I grew up in it, being a preacher's kid. I know that's the world that I know. And to me, it needs to continue in the world in however capacity that I can help with.
Well, and I think that you do that so effortlessly because so I'm just going to say that sometimes a preacher's kid actually kind of has that DNA in them to be, I don't know, a preacher. So sometimes during coffee and chill, man, I'm just going to say method you preach on. I'm just saying.
Right.
So that apple don't fall far from the tree.
Yeah, well, watching my dad do that my entire life, and then on top, like I do have those moments while I am talking. I'm like, I am my father right now. This is happening. If he was listening at this moment, he would be doing so many "I told you so"s. Uh, but I get that, and on top of that, the good things about church, because that's a whole Pandora's box in itself to have the conversation about. But the good aspects of church that we need to have, the community, the spending time together, the knowing what's going on in people's lives, praying with each other, having some kind of conversation about what's happening in the world and how we can go about it in taking care of our souls and our relationship with God. Having that be a part of things is, to me, it's like it needs to happen regardless. And if they want to try to shut down churches, they can't stop what we're doing, no matter
No.
what they do.
Well, and that's the whole thing. They tried to shut people up who basically had a calling on their life. They had a calling to go out and to be a voice, to be even somebody who cries out in the wilderness, repent, just like John the Baptist. They couldn't shut John the Baptist up. So when they tried to do this cancel culture, it just didn't work because people were rising up and there were places and God was opening up different opportunities for people to start speaking. And that's exactly what happened with you.
Right. I mean, a lot of it, it's that whole hindsight thing when you look back, and it's just really interesting how God had you go down certain paths and you learn from it. And it was such a building block that you needed going on moving forward, because a lot of my life has been just like that next step, and you're not going to see more. You're not going to know anything. You're just going to go through. It's like, make the Twitter account. It literally came down to, I was like, all right, I'll make their Twitter account and help if I can get into that old account that I have from 5 or 6 years ago, if I can remember the password. And that was kind of my excuse to not do it, because I actually hate social media, which is really weird because I also work for one now.
Hmm.
But just the aspect of it overall. And I ended up remembering the password and I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll go ahead and just do this. And the whole plan was 6 months. And then now, I live this 24/7 for the most part, and that's just something that watching how all those pieces fell in place and it kind of led that way. It's like I couldn't have even gotten in my own way at that point, and I'm
Well,
just grateful to
but
where I
I
am now.
think that when you have a calling that, God gives you the place. Like, he doesn't call the qualified, right? He qualifies the called. I mean, that's something that we
Right.
say. And were so many and there still there are a lot of voices who they just got up to go. Nobody sent them, nobody called them, and so when things come against them, they're gonna right out. But
Right.
when you're called, you stand. Like, God will open up doors and pathways for you to go, so you don't even have to worry about it. Like, you just keep doing what you're doing and the people will come. If basically, in the Azusa Street revival, the man, the pastor, I'm trying to think of his name, Sid, I want to say it's Sydney, but that's not it. But he stood basically on a soapbox. He the little cardboard. He stood on that, and that was his platform. It wasn't like the Guanamas that we have right now in churches with the lights and the smoke machines and all that stuff.
Right.
It's like a rock and roll show. It was very, very simple. Seymour's name. And so when God has called you, you can't also run away from that call, because when you got like pulled off of Twitter, you could have just, well, I'm gone. It's all done.
Right. No, it's something that had obviously crossed my mind, because I know when I dedicate to something, I want to stick with it. That's something that over the years that I hated how I used to be that way. So I always try to stick to projects that I work on the best I can. But yeah, there was that moment that I could have, but it's something like what you say, when there's a calling, when there's something that's just laid on your heart, and it's like that's the lifestyle, that's what you're doing. It's not your agenda, it's not just your goal. It's like you're literally living it. Like when I'm listening to something that I'm like, whether it's a podcast or a sermon or something out there, I'm immediately, when I have a thought, it then goes to, okay, where can I use that to help people with that message? That would be good, and I just can't turn that off. And it's kind of just something that I've watched develop over the last year or so, because of where we knew, with everything going on in the world, it was just really, where was everything going to go, and we all had to have that self reflection moment on how we want to go about things going forward, and it just fell on my heart. That I was like, people are going to need attention put on them, and we need to focus on them. There's this whole idea being, whether you want to call it a digital soldier, part of a community, you said truthers, whatever you want to call it. Like, that's all to help the world, that's putting the information out there, that's trying to wake them up. That's the people that aren't in your tribe yet. You're trying to win them over. Who's taking care of the tribe? Who's
Hmm.
paying attention? Who's giving the option of, hey, let's speak to you, let's talk about your lives, let's see what you're into, let's get to know why, like, you're a good, like, you're trying to be a good person, you're being selfless, you're trying to red pill the world, wake up people that you don't even know if they're a bot or not on the internet. You're just trying because you feel like it's the right thing to do and it's on your heart. Like, now with everything that we're doing, it's just like, we got to make sure that we're taking care of the team. When you're at the ready and you're shoulder to shoulder, you got to make sure that everybody's good for the mission ahead.
Oh yeah, and I think that also. Gosh, what would I call that? I call that a preacher's heart. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is who I am. I'm gonna call out because everybody's, what I believe is that your calling will call you out. And so if you are called to be a mouthpiece, people are going to start to see you as somebody that needs to speak. People are going to invite you to share, to give your testimony, or to give advice or your wisdom or whatever it is. And so when you're talking and all you keep talking about is your heart for people, see, that's truly what a pastor is. A pastor is somebody. So you're a pastor of a church, but your church is just on the internet and it involves a lot of coffee. That's basically what I believe coffee and chill is. It's just kicking back in church, trying to be there, to be the comfort, to be the support, to be the wisdom. and to shepherd the people who come into your flock.
Right. And to me, if the world is going to continue down this path, and it's going to be heavy, if all the headlines, if the idea of it is they need to make it clickbait, so it has to be, enraging or something, and if they have to plan everybody's emotions and everything's heavy, in a lot of directions that you look in life, there's got to be something, an option in our lives that is, let's go the other route. Let's
Mm,
feed the soul a little bit. Let's at least give it a little bit of time. Show up, say hi. You can mute me. I have no problem saying that. You can mute me and hang out with the chat. They're the best people I know. Just the community, the environment, the love and the support, like that to me is the ripple effect. So when there's this talk about me being a preacher, and I can't argue with that, it's kind of growing on me to a point. But there's even more to that, because I'm making sure that there's a new path forward. It's showing that the path less traveled while the old guard is crumbling.
mm,
While these things are showing with their faces, or showing who they are, they're making people have to make moral decisions on things that they do in their daily life based off of that. And it's this new path forward. It's like we got to make sure that that ripple effect of good energy in the right direction, and that's involved in it. Like that's the path is intertwined with that. And we've just got to make sure that people are, because we still have so much deprogramming to do from the world overall, that we've got to make sure that at least the energy is positive, so there's no way for evil to creep back in and keep doing what it does. And
exactly.
that's just kind of the drive that I have about it.
Well, we can look at all the stuff that's coming out because, we kind of have to talk about some of the stuff that's coming out because
Right.
you were tweeting about the stuff you were tweeting about the stuff that is currently starting to come out, and it's even going to be more. But then what do you do with it? What do you do
Right.
as people start to really say, "Holy moly, this stuff is true?" Like we can joke about it and we can laugh about it, but when it smacks you in the face and says it's truth, and now it's starting, because the ugliness of that truth is going to start to affect people around you who didn't know. It's
Right.
this is going to be a very, once the truth gets out, we're going to need people like you. We're going to desperately need people like you who understand, but also know how to love people where they're at.
Yeah, that's something that I agree with you wholeheartedly, that we need to have people that are out there, they're going to be compassionate and understanding and biting their lip on the "I told you so's" moments, especially when it comes down to things like making health choices, and stuff of that nature. To me, I feel like God is using this opportunity right now to bring us back to that love one another humanity. Let's get back to that. You've called me, I could be called this, I can be called that. You could spit in my face if I try to give you the truth, go the other direction. But when you have that moment, I know God knows that I'm at the ready to be there for that person. And let
Mm,
me be that, because God needs people to be in those positions to be able to
yes.
be what that person needs. Like that's something that I talk a lot about, is that yeah, we all could see it for what it is, and then we can argue here or there on, is it going to happen, is it not going to happen, is it in our lifetime, how's this going to play out, should we be preparing, should we be living in the mountains. I hear all that, and that's the what if game, and that's a lot of a way to get hyped up in the emotion, that that's what they're pulling the strings on. They're trying to get people confused and freaking out. Well, the thing is that people are still waking up every day. People are watching Canada and saying,
Oh
wow,
yeah.
that's actually tyranny, and that's Canada. I was told they were nice. And look at them. And having all that go on, and then that's, some people are waking up now at that moment, and they're going to find that pod of people, that tribe. Maybe it's touched by prayer. Maybe it's on Foxhole. Maybe it's anybody in the ripple effect of people trying to make a difference and be there for those during these times. That needs to be there no matter what happens. So when I have that kind of conclusion in my head, then it's not a matter of should we, it's a matter of, like, let's get started.
Right. And I think honestly, if you want to say let's get started, I think Durham started it. I think it's already done because I think that what I see we've had we've had some really bad raps on a lot of different prophetic voices. So I'm going to say I'm very prophetic, and so prophecy is something that I truly believe in, and I believe it's such a gift from God. And so, God has been sharing with a lot of different people things to come. Why does he share it? He shares it to prepare. That's the
Right.
only reason he does it. He shares it so that the church can be prepared. It's not about, well, it's going to be this day and it's going to be that day, and it's going to be on a, the sky's going to be sunny. Oh no, but it happened and it was raining. Oh, they were wrong. No, it's like no, he's giving us this stuff to let us know that it's coming, and this is what you need to do. You need to prepare, and what the church has to do is to pray. And so you have a lot of different individuals who come into you. I'm using Coffee and Chill because I've been in there more than anything else. And I've seen that there are different individuals who they're finding Jesus in their own way, because
Right.
there's lots of different ways to get to Jesus, but there's only one way to get to God, and that's through Jesus. So it's like we can go about and we can find Jesus, we can find Jesus in a grocery store, we can find Jesus, at a laundromat, we can find Jesus, at, gosh, you can find Jesus in a bar. I mean, there are people who've had like encounters, but the same message is clear. It's going to be Jesus who's going to bring you right to the Father, and through that relationship is how you're going to change. And so I've seen, like on Coffee and Chill, how you have different levels of people to being awake to the reality of who Jesus is. And you kind of are able to pull all of these different levels in and make them all feel like nobody is superior or less than. And that's what I love about you.
No, I appreciate you saying that, and I guess that comes from the training. Like, to me, the reason why I know God's, like, one of the reasons why I can say comfortably I know God's involved in what's happening in the world. Whether it could feel tragic, and some people even want to blame God at times for it. There's God's hands involved, is because a lot of balls started getting set and rolling multiple years ago, and not just in my life, but a lot of people, and it was setting them up to be ready for these times. And what do I mean by that? I mean, I had to consider how I was releasing the information, because I didn't know, and I used to joke about how I wish that we had a red pilled scale so I knew where you were when I was talking to you. Because either A, you're going to be on the same wavelength as me and I'm now talking down to you and I don't want to, or I make a reference and it's completely over your head because you just woke up yesterday. And so I had to kind of figure out a way to not coddle people, but also just give the information and not try to sway, have them learn and understand in their way, because that's their journey. That's not my journey to conduct for them. And I look at the same way with the stuff now for people that know what I'm trying to do and what's happening in the mornings with the streams, is that I want to make sure that I'm feeding into the soul whatever needs to happen for the person at whatever stage they're at. And because there's people that don't even believe in God that listen to me. I've talked to them, and
Mm-hmm.
that's fine, but they still get where I'm coming from, and they have their own interpretation of connection to it. That's not my journey. I feel like that's something that used to really bother me about church, or at least my experience in a church or two that I went to, is that people would be like, "No, well, you can't. Those people, you have to get them to believe in God. They can't. They're going to hell. It's your job to save them." It's like, no, it's my job to be there for them and to have the information there, pray for them, and have it there, and not be rude to them. Right? Like, I mean, they're
Yep.
not. They're being good to me as people, but who am I to be like that? To me, never understood, and I never understood that, and so I kind of take that same look at all this, because a lot of things get argued about because of personal belief, and they come
Mm-hmm.
from, like, you, if you grow up being like having a certain point of view, and then you meet somebody else that has grown up with a different opposing point of view, and you both believe you're 100% right with no leeway, can become a thing. And I feel like that doesn't need to be the case. We need to accept each other and not go down those roads. And that's my mindset when I do the streaming, is that I don't know who I'm talking to that day, what they've been through, what's going on, but I want them to be better than when they got here. I want them to be a little
Right.
bit better.
And I think that's, the reason that the church has been I don't want to be like, I'm not trying to bash the church because I love the church because we're the church, but I feel that it's the division. It's the things coming against, like, people talking bad about each other and backbiting and all that slander and all that stuff that actually makes us weak, because it says that
Right.
a house divided against itself can't stand, which is scriptural. But if you actually look, that particular scripture in the Bible, it works in and applies in everything. If you had your entire broadcast, if it was divided, how would you be able to have a broadcast if people are starting to say smack about one another and talking about this
Right.
one and talking about that one? You wouldn't be able to, you can't have unity. It's unity causes growth. It's division that causes like it to die. That's why the everything that you're seeing, there have been certain agendas that have been extremely successful because they've been on the same page. Everybody speaks the
Right.
same thing, they say the same thing, they have the same agenda. But when you have, like, the church, for example, where they're all over the place, and some people believe in this and some people believe in that, and they're talking bad about this person and talking bad about that person, and it's like, how the heck are we ever going to get together and become, unified if all we ever
Right.
do is try biting each other?
Right, and I mean, no, and nobody, in turn, nobody's perfect, and we do have our moments, and we say things we don't mean, and on top of that, a lot of it could be in like chats and stuff. So like, I'm narrating your words, and I'm putting whatever connotation or tone that I want on it, and I could be mad at you when it's just like, oh, your caps lock was just stuck, and I just thought you were yelling at me,
Right.
But I think that we need to get back to the concept of like people need to be able to fight. They need to be able to argue. It happens. Families fight, right?
Yeah.
It's those bonding moments, and you learn to like find your balance back again and work with people. Because the big game that the whole world, that like what I'm considering the old guard, what we're calling the old guard, or you want to just say the satanic agenda overall, is that they completely dabble in playing with people's emotions. I look at their words as casting spells because they've made
Yeah.
trigger words now. They associated words and meanings to things. Like think about what they did to the name Trump. To anybody that's not a Trump supporter, you say
Mhm.
Trump, then they invokes all these emotions. Why do you think they had to roll out the Rolodex of he is a this, he's a that, he's a that? They had to start programming the words. So then when they write their headlines or they have their little sound bites, they're basically casting these spells of emotional rage and confusion and getting people to be blinded, because then you could pit them against each other and also not have them grow spiritually or feed their souls overall. They start neglecting it, and then they don't
Mhm.
care about it anymore, and then the government's got the solutions. That all needs to stop. Like
Oh, yeah.
that absolutely needs to stop. But the thing is that this is something that's gone on since we've all been born. They've been working towards this, and we're going to be living in what I've been calling the page turn. We're going
Mm.
from the Great Awakening happening to a world of people figuring it out, right? Outside of it. How do they then adapt to this? You see what's happening in Canada and everything. People
Right.
are figuring out their way, but that's that long page turn that we're going to live in, that we might actually live through the entire, like, it might take our entire life to get there. But we have to accept that reality that we have the old guard and the new way that we're trying to live our lives at war with each other, and we got to take care of fellow man regardless, because that's the path forward. Like
Absolutely.
we got to make sure that we have souls taken care of and everything, because that's still got to thrive.
Mm. It's interesting when you were talking about being a page turner. It was the end of 2018, the very, very end of 2018, the very beginning of 2019. And I was in my quiet time and I was asking the Lord, I said, okay, what's coming for 2019? Because, that's what people do. They're like, okay, Lord, what's on for 2019? So I said, all right, I'll do it. So,
Right.
so I did that. And what I saw, Methods, is I saw this book and I saw the book close, completely closed. Then I saw a new book open. And when I looked at the book, I actually saw that there was nothing written. It was completely blank. And so as I got closer, as I peered in and I pulled myself in closer, and I was in a vision, but as I pulled myself in closer, I started to see writing. And I was like, okay, what is going on? And the Lord said to me, He said, He goes, in this season, He says, you need to be close to the author and the finisher. You need to be at His feet. And I went, "Ooh." And so
Right.
then when 2020 came, he said, "It's no longer a time to be a Martha," which is don't constantly be thinking that you have to work and work and work and work. In fact, but instead just to rest like Martha, like Mary, and sit at his feet and listen to what God is leading you into.
Right. I mean, it's something that you need to kind of understand, or at least pray and and ask discernment for discernment, and really understand your circumstance right now and what's really happening. Do you understand that it feels like time stood still? Right. It feels
Well,
like
they
the last three
hijacked
or
our
four. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, they hijacked our timeline. The
Right.
Satanists hijacked our timeline. That's what they did because we weren't supposed to
Right.
get this yet.
Right.
Sorry.
So you've got no. You're fine. That's exactly what they did, because they basically then said, okay, well then we're going to create our own truth and create our own reality, and we're going to leverage everything we've allowed as people to infiltrate our lives as convenience, all the way down to the cars we buy and the gasoline that we need to get there and the flying. Like, I feel like there's a really humbling, sobering moment that you can have when you think about all the woke culture that's against you and how you believe, and they have no problem telling you that you need to be vaccinated and all this stuff, like going all down those roads. They have no problem doing that to you. Imagine cutting all of that out and then realizing that you can still get those things done without them, but it's a lot more work, and you haven't been working at that kind of pace. And then it feels like that, like, how dare them do that to you? It's like, was that really your right to begin with? We were just
Mm,
born with it. Like the simple things like being able to fly. Like, okay, I
mhm.
agree. We should be able. Everybody should be able to do things that are offered to the public openly. But if they want to then change the rules on everybody and leverage it, then okay, you can't fly. But then you're going to have to figure out another way to get there. And if we're talking about across the country, then okay, enjoy the drive, make it a trip, enjoy the thing. But once again, you're still accomplishing the goal without that part of it being done. But the issue is that it became convenience, and
Mm.
we have to rethink how we go about things. And because what were they doing to everybody else? I want to say I guess we'll just call it the old guard, that life.
Mhm.
They tell people they have to change. You have to make this kind of cake for this thing, even though it against your beliefs. You have to do this, and I feel
Yeah.
like that's where you start destroying any connection with people at all, and you have to go the other way about it. How can I make all of that relevant in my life and for my family's life, and then go
Right.
for it?
Well, if you go back into like, television programming, if we go into that, I started to, it's funny because like when you sit down and you have a conversation, you just sit back and you start having a conversation with God and he starts to like share stuff with you. You're like, I never even thought about that. And he started to talk to me about why children like are the children of this age who are like in their like I would say their late teens to like their early 20s. He said, "Do you know why they're so rebellious?" And I said, "No." And he said, "What television shows did your children watch?" And I was thinking about they were watching the Nickelodeon and they were watching Disney. That's what my kids were watching when they were little kids. And he goes, "Think about it, Lisa." He said the children were in charge in all the movies. Because I mentioned, he goes, "What shows did they
Right.
watch?" And I mentioned them, and it was Jimmy Neutron, and it was a Fairly Odd Parents, and there were no parents. And if there were parents, the parents were morons. The teachers were idiots, and the police officers weren't respected. They started this back in like the late 1990s, even and in through 2000. There were no parents, and like I said, and he said that's why, and the children were smarter. The children were smarter than the parents. He said, "Don't you see, they were trying to teach your children not to trust their adults." I
Right.
went,
No, I mean
whoa.
that's such a good thing to point out. Anybody out there, think about any of your favorite things that you watched growing up, the Disney and stuff like that, the ones that
Hmm.
were universally praised, and write the script out, write your own synopsis, but don't write it just point blank what happens. Like, think
Hmm.
about like Bambi, right?
Oh yeah.
Like they immediately started off with a tragedy removing the parent.
The
right?
trauma. Mhm.
And then it becomes the journey, and it ends up, then they end up being better off because of it. There's a happy ending without them. They do that when
Mhm.
they're young, and then now the whole school thing. There is no reason for kids to be there that long at school for anything,
Absolutely.
even if they were teaching them the right things, like
Yep.
actual stuff, like actual skills that they need to have. They don't need to be there that long. They need to be with the parents. They need to have that influence with them, around them, shaping them in the direction that they need to go, as compared to anybody doing agendas. Because when you go, and
Mhm.
I mean, this is a rabbit hole that we don't have to go down, but if you study things in the things like what iPod covers, the Weather Underground, and how they knew, they understood, you go after the education system and you sever the ties of the family, because that's how you get in to get people in to believing that the state, the government, the powers that be, the accepted leaders of the world are now your parents. So when they say something good and the rest of the 40,000, 100,000 likes happen, that's them all collectively having their children agree with them. So maybe you should. It's all conditioning across the board. And they need to do the separate of the family, because then it starts in down the satanic agenda for their lives, to where they get you to willingly push your soul out of your own body in the
Oh,
form of accepting everything else that the world wants you to do. And then that's why do you think things like the metaverse comes around? They're like, okay, look, we're going to create a false reality that you can have it be whatever you want. You're going to play by our rules. We're going to be your God, but we're going to allow you to be whatever you want to be, and you don't have to deal with this filthy world that we're not going to point out the fact that we ruined it. We're going to
mhm.
just hand you something else, and you could sit in your house and DoorDash your food into oblivion and complacency. Like, that's the goal with it, and that's why we have to fight it going the exact opposite direction.
Well, it's interesting in the metaverse, you don't have a lower area, no nether region. So therefore, it doesn't matter what you look like on top because it's the bottom that
Right.
always proves who you are. Just saying.
Right. No,
Just saying.
100%. No, I mean that's the point to be made here, is that they are, that the end game here in the battle between good and evil is to make people believe that they are not the children of God, and they don't have souls, and it doesn't matter. There's nothing can save them, and what they see is what they get, and the leadership is the leadership. And then you do say, you know what, I don't need this soul. You can do whatever you want with it. I'll just take the things that make me happy with this one life to live, because I have no faith in anything else. That's the end game,
Mm.
attacking God's children, and that's what we have to counteract.
And if we really truly think about like what is our role? Like being if you have any type of a platform whatsoever and you are a believer in Christ, you're a Christian, what is your
Hmm.
role? It's to speak the good news, to preach the good news, to preach that the kingdom has come. It's not so much to shame and condemn, because guess what? Jesus never did that. Like, he was around prostitutes, he was around sinners, he was around tax collectors. He never shamed them. He never ever made them feel less than. He always made them
Right.
feel good. They enjoyed being around him. I think we could learn a lot from his example. Because what is that expression? It says that, you can attract a lot more bees, to honey than you could vinegar, right? Or flies to honey
Right.
than vinegar. It's like that's what we have to do. The message has to be sweet. The message has to be full of love. If there is no love in it, honestly, methods, I'm out. Like if a message, I don't care how good the pastor is, I don't care how many prophetic words he has, but if he's not speaking in love and he's speaking in condemnation, I'm out.
Right. No, and to that point, the world has recreated honey artificially and told them that that's real love. That's the real thing. Like, they've reprogrammed and redefined on a emotional, spiritual level what some of these things mean. What is really love? That goes back to the references of Hollywood, the rom coms and those movies, and that's how they shape it, and that's how it's supposed to be, and it's not the case. And I feel like that's we gotta get back to not using the artificial world to get the wonders and the beauties of this world that God has out there for us to actually grow from and learn from and share with each other, and not have those artificial things that, like you said, like, have no substance to it. except the novelty of it or the quick fix, the dopamine, whatever you want to call it. We've got to get back to the natural dopamine, the natural life of the connections, to loving one another, being there for each other, being the shoulder. You understand, like being like people that are selfless don't want to bother people. A lot of them don't want to bother them anybody else with their own problems. They'd rather carry everybody else's. I do that all the time, right? But they need to understand is that there's something to being the shoulder that's cried on that helps that person grow themselves because they're
Yes.
being there for somebody and they're having that moment of seeing somebody through to the positive side, getting them back to that nourishment feeling, being what God needs them to be in that moment. And that's depriving them of that opportunity because what's helping me grow in a moment can also be helping whoever else is involved in whatever moments they're dealing with. And we can't try to play God with all of that. We've got to let it happen naturally and work together on it.
Well, I think too when you like I so God gives me a lot of songs, and so I come up with songs, but it's like, wouldn't you give your hand to a friend? I'm thinking about really,
Right.
really old, really Crystal Gale old song. So, but I'm just saying, there's that lyric. It's like, who are we supposed to be? We're supposed to be the hands. We're supposed to be the feet. We're supposed to be the ones who help people carry whatever they're going through. We're not supposed to just leave people. I mean, there was the song "Bridge Over Troubled Water," like by Simon and Garfunkel. The beautiful thing, it's like, I will lay me down like a bridge over troubled water. It's like we're supposed to lay ourselves down in the troubled water so that people can walk over us to get to Him. That's really
Right.
what it comes down. Like if people are like, "Oh, the remnant." Oh, yeah, I get it. The remnant is a piece of a carpet, but the thing that I always think about is a remnant is the red carpet, and the red carpet is rolled out to go to the King. And so if that's who we are, people are going to walk on us. I'm just saying.
Right. No,
You're
that's
calling
that's
yourself part of the remnant, just expect to be walked over because that's yours to lay yourself down so that they can walk over you to get to the King.
right. Now that's well said and very timely because I know a lot of people, especially with the whole trying to get people like to wake people up to stuff that's being lied to in the public, to the public, especially about health stuff. Like people have that, I'm tired of having my hand bit, and it's
Mhm.
justified. When you have a goal and it's like, all right, at least want to get like to me, my mindset is if you're trying to wake up somebody or do something, if you're trying to help someone, that mission is accomplished when you've done your attempt, when you've given it your best shot. But if that person says, all right, thank you for that, and then goes in a different direction, that doesn't make you a failure at that point. You
Right.
did what you were supposed to do and you go through that. I think the problem that we have though is that this has become so emotional and so personal, which it is, that gets distracted and then we end up being at each other's throats about it and it becomes a high energy thing. And I feel like we've got to step back and be a lot more understanding about that. Like if somebody freaks out at you, it's like it's not about you. It's not about your emotions. You're not being assaulted. It's that person's having a hard time right now and they might need to do the death blossom of emotion at that moment just to get it all out there, and then they're going to feel better about it. And then for you to be able to stand there and be like, all right, I could take this and not take it personal, that can become second nature because we're all needing to be there for each other in those moments. Like anybody that's listening to us right now, like think about something that happened in your life. Think about a moment that when you think about that moment, you think about the person that helped you get there, that person that listened to you, that helped you through that moment, or put the idea in your head, gave you the encouragement, the only one that talked to you when you went through that struggle that you needed to get out of to be a better person. They were the one person, right? There's somebody, right? That somebody can be you tomorrow for somebody else, right? And you're course correct. You're helping people course correct in a world that right now is trying to destroy everyone.
Mm.
Everybody needs the help. So that's what like we've got to make sure that you're looking for the opportunity to do that for others as well.
Well, and when we really see, as a laid down lover of God, we want to put away, We want to be unoffendable. That's the word I really want to use. Is that we can't be offended because we know that we're not dealing sometimes with people. Sometimes we're dealing with trauma, people who've been traumatized, people who've been wounded, people who've been hurt. We're not dealing sometimes when somebody jumps out at us. It's not because we've done something, but it's because something has been triggered inside of them that says that they have to defend themselves, or that they're angry about something because they're dealing with stuff from their past that sometimes hasn't been dealt with or hasn't been healed. And so if you're ever like anybody who's ever been in the like in a policeman or an EMT or anything, when somebody is really really crazed, what they do is they actually lower their voice and they
Right.
start to whisper, because what it does is it starts to make the person calm down. And so if we
Right.
have tools in the natural world, shouldn't we have tools as believers, as representation of our Father, of representation of what the kingdom of God should look like? Because if we're falling into the same thing, if they're pulling us into their fit, then there's still some stuff we have to work on ourselves. And I'm just going to say this, not everybody has to do all this stuff. Some people aren't called to doing that stuff. Some people
Right.
are just called to, I always say this, people have different jobs. Some people drop seeds, some people water seeds, some people actually pull out weeds, some people actually get the harvest. We all have a job to do. So just because somebody's willing to lay down and let somebody walk over them, that might not be your job. So we never have
Right.
to worry, because God's going to lead us into the things that we're supposed to do, if that makes sense.
No, it really does, and I feel like we all, if you just remind yourself that we're all trying to navigate these waters, we're trying to understand it. Where, and on top of that, what happens next, which you need to give yourself the benefit of the doubt on that you are going to have your way, you're going to figure it out, you're going to just work towards the goal, and on top of that, this is a great reminder to everyone on how much you need God in your life, that
Right.
direction, that discernment, that moment. Like, once again, you being that one that, you'd love to be the one there for those, for others. Like, if they need to vent, talk, cry, whatever, you get to be that for somebody, and it feels good, right? How do you think God feels when you go to Him about it? Like, when you're like, hey, like, I'm going through this, I need to figure this out. But at the end of the day, you need to remind yourself that no matter what happens, God's with us in this. You see all the signs there. Quit second guessing yourself if you start doubting it. You see it for what it is. Think about life 5 years ago, on how many examples you had to actually show people that evil is involved in this world. And then
Oh,
now
yeah.
think about it. Like, what is all that? That's God revealing things, giving people that aren't of minds of faith, or don't think that, or are asleep, or whatever you want to call it. Uh, this is about them having the fighting chance too. So that to me is like, I believe that Lisa, myself, and many others, we have our roles that we feel like we need to play during these times. Whatever that is for you, if you don't know, being a part of the community, being an encourager, praying for people, all that. But on top of that, praying for the discernment of what's best road for you to help in this. Like, I feel like that to me, that whole path of growing and learning what you need to do, is beautiful. I really think it is.
Well, and I also believe, sometimes our prayers, just quietly praying for somebody, that's like some of the best things that we can do, especially as things are starting to ramp up and things are starting to be exposed. As I was saying earlier, I believe that it's time for us to just quietly just pray, to pray for the
Right.
hearts, to pray for people, because as some of these pills get passed out, and I'm just going to say this, my friend Greg Harvey, he has this video of this huge red pill suppository. I mean, it's like this big, it looks like a suppository, and it's like beep, beep, beep. And I'm like, oh my gosh, because it's going to some people will not open their mouths. And so it's going to have to be shoved in order for them to wake up,
Right.
because
And,
this
and
truly is a wake up call.
100%. And in turn, think about, like, we've done this thought exercise before, asking yourself, what if you woke up right now during all this? Like, let's say that you just, like, the TV didn't lie, Congress had your best interest at heart, all those things. If you believed all that stuff, then immediately had your world shattered and it's everything now, it would be crazy, right? Your mind would not even know you. It would be rocking back and forth in the corner, right? How would you be acting if that was the case? Now think about the world even starting to be like, hey, something's wrong here. They're seeing the glitching cat of the Matrix in real time happen, and they're trying to understand it, and it's not settling well with the oppression that's happening in this world that's keeping them in their sleep, but they're starting to
Absolutely.
wake up, and we got to be understanding that they're waking into a new person that sees the world differently, and that's mind altering. Think about them being like, wait a second, you mean big pharma doesn't care about me? The TV lied to me? What about all the what else did they lie about? That's mind altering to happen right now, and you need to be the calm voice around that. You need to be the one when they're standing and yelling, you're sitting down and raising and lowering the tone.
Well, and I think that's the thing about, and I'm going to go back to your coffee and chill, because that's exactly what we need to do. Have some coffee and just chill. We can't be the ones who are like, oh my god, we can't be like, what is it? The sky is falling, the sky is we can't be that person. We have to know, if we know who our creator is, if we know where we come from and where we're going to, then we should be able to know that we were called for such a time as this, that we were called for this time. Every single person that's here right now, you're here for a reason. You have a part to play in this, whether it's a big part or a small part. Everybody has a part to play, because whether you like it or not, you have a sphere of influence of people around you. And there are people that only you can get to, that like Methods can't get to, or I can't get to, unless you bring them to us. That's the thing. So when these people go out and you're having conversations, or you're having a drink with a friend and you're starting to talk about things, you're going to be the one who can just say, it's going to be okay. I know how this is going to work out. I've been, following this, or I've been seeing this. And you're going to be that one who's going to be that calm. You're going to be the phone call that they're going to say, I got to call somebody. They're going to call you because they know that you know this stuff. And it's just being chill, because it's going to get bumpy. It's going to get crazy. But if the church can just remain at a place of being calm and saying and at peace, that peace that surpasses all understanding, we're going to be able to get through this with a lot less casualties. I'll put it that way. I don't mean people dying, but I mean people just like
Right.
losing their minds.
No, I totally agree with you. Well said. It's a matter of the whole idea of being the calm in the storm. What does that look like? Like I feel like these times now you can be literal with things that we've used as sayings for a very long time. You could be really straightforward, being the calm in the storm. Things are pretty crazy right now, ain't it? So
Oh, yeah.
having at least that clear mind to make your decisions and to be there for those that don't have the clear mind. The world needs that out there, and I feel like our community is like we have a plethora of people that are like that, and it's a beautiful thing to be a part of.
And I think that's what makes you so special, is because you were able to come in, and start this huge thing. I know there are other people with you. I don't know who they are. I'm sure they have, code names. It's kind of like Batman and Robin, and then you have like,
Right.
all these other these other names, But what's so cool about what you guys have done is you have been able to pull all those who got thrown off of social media, who didn't have a place to get information, didn't have a safe place to just kind of vent, or a safe place to just basically vet information, because everything that you put up, you have vetted. There's no question about that. You've gone through and you've been like, yeah, this is BS, so don't listen to this, or this is truth, so this you might want to pay attention to. But and of course we have number 17, that where I think a lot of this stuff kind of came from. And it's interesting because we're starting to see certain things play out from that. And all of that says is, whether it was a psyops, whether it wasn't a psyops, whether it was something from the government, it makes me know that the enemy always, just like every good Marvel comic book movie that you see, the bad guy always tells the good guy what he's going to do. They've
Right.
told us what they're going to do. They think they're all sneaky and bad, but we're smarter because we're now paying attention and we're not dismissing it. we've been we've been woken up, and I think that that's exactly what you've done. Methods is you've helped to wake people up, and I think that Coffee and Chill is such a perfect name because you wake up to smell the coffee. So
Right.
it's just perfect.
No,
So can you just
I
go
appreciate you
ahead?
saying that.
Oh, well, I do. I really think like the first time I talked to you when you were trying to help me establish my my space over at Foxhole, and you were just so kind and so sweet. And of course, God's like telling me all these things, which I shared with you. But but the thing that I see for you is just this. Even after everything is exposed, because it's going to be, and even after some of the stuff is shown, which is going to be, um, there's going to be a safe place for people to still come and to sit and just to reflect and to get encouraged. And I really believe that God is just going to completely increase your reach, your voice, and also your influence in this community, because you have been exactly who you said you are. You haven't changed in the last 2 years since you started, and since I've gotten to know you. You haven't changed. You have been the same. For a lot of people, that you can't say that. So I thank you for staying true to who you are.
No, I thank you for saying that, Lisa, and I agree with you. There's a path past all of this, and we need to consider that as well. And I it's if we're going to go down this new path and we're not using what the old guard wants us to, having the entertainment and living that way, and the woke culture, you can't say these words, you have to address people this way, that, and the other, accept things against your own religious beliefs because you have to, or you'll be attacked or whatever. Like, if you're not gonna, if we're going in a different path, we got to make sure that we do it in the way that God intended for us to be as people to each other. And whether it's a couple hundred people hanging out during a coffee and chill in the morning, or a replay that ends up living past my existence, of that kind of energy, I just think that to me, when I look back on my life, that's how I want to do it. I want to be that positive energy that's out there that could be the ripple effect, because that means that the devil always loses because they can't
That's
turn the
right.
lights out.
That's so good. And I will just tell you on a personal note, I know some people who you have definitely red pilled, and you really brought back to life, and you are part of them coming back into the fold of Jesus. So personally responsible, just saying.
That,
And that's
that means a
always,
lot.
yeah, well, it's good to hear, because sometimes we need to know that we're not working in vain, that there is fruit. And I see the fruit. I do see the fruit that you produce, and it's really good fruit.
Thank you for that. I really do appreciate it, and I thank you
Oh,
for what you do. Like I hope for anybody out here that's catching Lisa for the first time, because you guys follow my craziness all the way over here. Lisa's probably, arguably, one of the best encouragers that I've met along the ride here. You've got such a good energy, such a good spirit. You're very upbeat. She's just like this off camera, and I love that. And so, with all that said, Lisa, I'm honored to call you my friend, and
oh.
I do believe the world is better off with you in it, and having the mindset that you do.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so before we get off, you have to talk about methods to madness, or M to madness, because you have a new website, which is stinking awesome. It is so flippin' awesome. I was like going through, and I
Right.
was like, oh, this is so cool.
Yeah, no, I have to give a shout out to Laura, who just knocked it out of the park. Just ran a few things by me, but I told her to run with it because her style matches my style,
Hmm.
and so she just took the design feel that I have for my work, and she just ran with it. She knew what I needed. And it's just worked out great. And it's just one of those things moving forward. You just have to have your own things. It's like, okay, we'll stream on other platforms that are out there that aren't ours, but I know going forward, you need to just own your own stuff. And that's why
Hmm.
Pilled is happening, Foxhole, my website, and a bunch of other things coming down the pike that are, it's important. We got to go down that route. So yeah, I have to give Laura a big shout out for that. And it's just the old handle from Twitter. Somebody had squatted on methods or something like that .com. So I had to go the other route.
Well, it's very cool. So if people want to go and find out more about you, you have all of your podcast up there. So all of
Hmm.
your coffee and chill and some of your other stuff, I think that you've done some interviews with other people. So I think those are up there as well.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
And I have a podcast that I do with a friend of mine that goes by I Find It, his code name, as you
Uh-huh.
refer to it. I love that. Yeah, we have code names.
Uh-huh.
It's called You Must Be Lost. It's a podcast that actually is returning here in the next few weeks. In
Cool.
in a new form. You know, new year, new things that we're going to be doing. But yeah, you'll find all that information on the website.
Very cool. Well, this has been so awesome. And you are an encouragement too. You really seriously are. But I love like your community. I think your community is a lot of fun. They're always so welcoming. And I love how like you can see like who the mom is in your chats and you know
I have I
who's the
have I have
grandma.
I have I have several that will tell me, and they'll be
Mhm.
right. They're like, you need to take a day off, right? And I'm like, yeah, you're probably right.
Mhm.
But I don't
Mhm.
know if I'm going to. And they're like, no, you're taking a day off, right? And I'm like, yeah. So that's
Mhm.
that's my life. I love all of them. They're the greatest people that I could ask for in my
And
life.
you also just celebrated your birthday, so happy birthday to you.
Right, the very, very old, wise age of 36. I'm told that
Oh my
now I
gosh.
finally made it. I know, right? I'm so incredibly.
You're such a baby. Wait till you hit your 50s.
Right,
Then
is
we'll
that
talk.
it? I've been asking people like, where's that moment where I'm not called a child, a baby anymore?
Well, I
What's
think,
the number?
I think like in your 40, well, see, you're already ahead of the game because in your 30s, you really don't give a crap what people say about you. But in your 40s, you kind of start that. In your 50s, you seriously don't. Like, you're just like, you're so over it. You're like, yeah, I'm done. It just doesn't,
Imagine,
yeah.
other than for anybody that continues listening to me for 20 or so more years, it doesn't get better. I don't get nicer. I guess I'm just gonna. I'll just become more
Yeah.
honest.
Well, you will become more honest, but you're also not going to hold back. You're going to become bolder.
Right. That's the goal. That's the dream.
Yep. That is the dream. Well, thank you so much. If you just hang off, I'm going to say goodbye. I just want to say goodbye to you off air. But Methods, it is always a pleasure to talk to you. If you guys are interested in finding more about Methods, you can go to m2madness.com, check out his stuff. And I'm sure there's a little something, something you can always drop in. If there's Patreon or something like that, you can always do any kind of, yes, donations. Yes, no, yes,
I
no.
mean, if it happens, but it's not everything I do is for free, regardless, so it
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
matter.
I hear you. But if you'd like to go drop a little something, something, it's always nice to get a little something, something. Just saying. So hold on tight. Well, I'm just going to say goodbye. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for coming on Touched by Prayer. I hope you guys have enjoyed this conversation with Methods. He is so awesome. Don't forget that he does coffee and chill every day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. So, right after Crown Chats, because I'm actually starting to end at 10. I'm trying. It's really hard sometimes. But if you want to catch me tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m., you can see me on Crown Chats. Thank you guys so much. Have an awesome night. Don't forget to go out and touch someone. Have a great one. Bye bye.